Alright, Marion Dorflinger again. And once again, I want to talk about the history of where the Missouri meets the Mississippi. Because I love how big that is in American history. And it amuses me how little it's talked about. Like, where that river hits that river. That's a big river. But, for some reason, a lot of reasons, most people who are traveling west, when the money was really to be made over that river and out west, where the opportunity was, they wanted to cross that river there. A lot of reasons why. One is that Missouri, at that time, had more accessible water for oxen and horses and people. I mean, good, fresh, good water. You could find more water, more places on that migration west in Missouri than any other state. And that was one of the reasons that St. Louis was called the gateway to the West at one time, and before that, or after that, it was Kansas City. And a big part of the reason that the arch is there is to celebrate the fact that we were the gateway to the West. Is like, this is where you go across when you're going west. And people who study wildlife will study how a species has never lived in a certain region all of a sudden shows up there. And that Mississippi-Missouri system is a wonderful topic to talk about the widespread populations of the coyote all over. There were no coyotes east of the Mississippi-Missouri River complex. There were no coyotes on that east of there until white people started building bridges. So for thousands upon thousands of years, the coyotes stopped. The population stopped on the western side. And then white people built bridges, and the coyotes got over. And now you can find coyotes living in New York City, living well. There's plenty for coyotes to eat in New York City, and they hide out, and they do just as fine in New York City as they do in Oregon and Missouri. And that's because that river, they found a way to cross it. And the people migrating across that river had to get across on a type of vessel that would float until the white people started building bridges. And nobody bridged the Mississippi where it meets the Missouri until James Buchanan Eads figured out how to do it. And that bridge was not completed until 1874. So everything that you know about the western frontier depended very, very heavily on the kind of floating thing that it took to get across that river. And you think of everything that happened in the West before 1874. And if it required crossing that river at that place, you did it with something other than a bridge. And because I love history as much as I do, when I see something important in history that I don't think enough people have talked about, I say, what is a metaphor in the world that I could attach that story to? And of course, I love to find folk songs that are in the public domain, and the melody that folk song is attached to has been used for dozens or hundreds of other folk songs of the people who lived in that region. And the one I chose for this one was Oh Wally Wally, which you will know better by The River is Wide. That melody is older than the English language. People were putting words to that melody before that was called Great Britain, before people spoke what is now English in that land. And one of the other versions, besides "The River is Wide, I Can't Cross Over," that melody begins in another way. Oh, Wally Wally, Gin Bonny, true love be. And that means, woe is me, true love is good whiskey. And I love it when people take one melody and put 1,000 different words to it. I guess I was reincarnated by the old bards, and the last of the traveling Irish bards is Anthony Raftery. And you need to look that guy up. You owe it to yourself to check out Anthony Raftery, and I'm not going to spoil it for you. You look it up. So I decided, how do I put crossing that river to go west and make your money, come home to marry your girlfriend, your bride? And I said, well, I'm going to put that to "The River is Wide," and if the words aren't perfect, then I'll change the tune a little bit. And then I'll find a musician and a vocalist that loves this story as much as I do. Because when you love it, it's easy. If you don't love it, it's hard work. And when you're talking about art, if you got to work at it, you should find something else to do. When your art is hard labor, don't do that piece of art. Find something else. So, just a minute. So, here are the lyrics to the words I put to "The River is Wide," pertaining to Western travel across that river before Mr. Eads finished his bridge. It's called "Far Side of the River." Where old man Mississippi River meets the mighty Missouri in St. Louis. Lord, that's a wide, swift river, my true love. It's going to take everything I've got to get me over and through to you. True love waits on the far side of the river, and her heart is breaking for me. I have all the love in my heart to give her, if Old Man River don't carry me down to the sea. We were young, bright-eyed children on the day I fell in love with her, and she with me. And there was a fortune to be made fast in the western frontier, and if I could come home a wealthy man, I would ask her to marry me. True love waits on the far side of the river, and her heart is breaking for me. I have all the love in my heart to give her, if Old Man River don't carry me down to the sea. And now I'm eastbound. I made my stake in the western states, and I'm going home to claim my bride. But a hard rain has been falling, and this river is in flood. True love waits, but the river is wide.